This episode is sponsored by Opportunity Arts. Opportunity Arts is putting business back in show business. They provide promotional services such as social media management and press relations to administrative services, like organizational management and strategic planning for individual artists and understaffed arts organizations. If you are an artist who is ready to take their career to the next level, contact Opportunity Arts today. Please visit www.opportunityarts.org. Again, that's www.opportunityarts.org. Welcome to the Rise and Above podcast. My name is David Hess, and today I have Sarah Renee Sanders with me. She is a local artist. She has an art studio here in Lansing. I think I mentioned she's from the Lansing area. I guess with that being said, how are you doing today, Sarah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I must say you're the first person to show up with body paint on.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you.
And it's pretty intense. Can you show the camera
Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy. Did you do that yourself?
I did, yes. Yeah, I'm a body painter, so it's definitely part of.
How difficult is that?
I feel like at first it was intimidating, as far as actually pursuing in the craft. I think that a lot of it has to do with being able to work with the medium of paint generically, but also to having to think of perception in regards to cameras and stuff, especially when it's on yourself. So it can be tricky, but I think it just takes practice.
How long have you been doing it for?
About 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what made you want to start doing that?
Well, actually, so my photographer friend, David, I met him through some friends of mine, and he did photo shoots and stuff. He's a photographer, like I said, and he wanted to do some work with me, but I wasn't really into, like, actually being a subject at the time, and so he was like, well, you should try body painting, and I was like, oh, because he knew that I was an
I don't like the way you said that, subject.
But yeah, no, and so he was like, well, you should try body painting, and I was like, huh, that's interesting, okay, and so I played around with it, and I loved it. Like, I fell in love with it, and it was, yeah, destiny.
So what kind of things do you paint typically? I mean, obviously that looks like veins, or is it veins?
Like veins, cracks, kind of a thing. Kind of just like leaching into who you are, I guess. But I do all sorts of things. I do a lot of realistic stuff too, like landscapes and things. So that's a big thing. I do like characters, just kind of whatever I really feel like. It's kind of how I go about it.
How often do you do that? Do you do it every day? Like, do you do it to go out?
Sometimes I'd say at least 10 times a month. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Because I do my own fine art too, so it's kind of just when it's needed, when I want to.
Do you get weird looks?
Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool though. I like it.
Thank you.
So can you tell me about yourself? Obviously you're from the Lansing area. You have an art studio here. How did all of that come about? How long have you been involved in art?
Oh geez, yeah. So it's a fun story. I've been in art since I was a little kid. I mean, my grandma gave me some of my first paint sets when I was like 3. So I've always kind of had an interest in it. But as I got older, I realized that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, and all I knew is that I wanted to make things. I wanted to do something where I was happy making things. So I kind of went with that and went to college at LCC. I got 2 degrees in art, and a lot of people are like, why are you doing that?
That seems to be the neutral consensus with the art degrees. Everybody's like, why did you do that? That's a waste of time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's how it is. But you know, the thing about it is I wanted to be that person to be like, no, you can do something with it. You know, if you really, really put yourself to it and believe in yourself. And so far I'm doing that, so I'm very proud of myself.
And how long have you been doing that?
So my brand is Contrasted Content. I started that in 2020.
During the pandemic?
Yes.
Is that what motivated you? To take that step?
Slightly. I think it was just more of because I got out of college, the pandemic did hit, and I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm 23. If I'm going to do something, I need to do it now. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like if I don't put the faith in myself and kind of like hold off on it, like, or like, going with like, kind of easing in. Like, it's not, I'm going to shy back and I'm not going to go anywhere. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now. That's what I did. I went out and I just said, let's go. So yeah.
So has it been full-time art since then?
No, I was going full time at my day job. I work for a sign company.
For a
And
what? A sign company?
yeah.
Oh, I might have to talk to you.
Yeah, you should. They're great. It's Sign Rama Lansing East. They're wonderful, and
Okay.
they have been so supportive with everything I've been doing. So I'm very thankful for that. But I did start off doing that full time, and then but I really just like on my off time and whatever, like I was putting all my hours into the art, like, working with people and building myself and building my confidence, like that's a big thing, and things like that. And then the momentum went forward. I went with Opportunity Arts in the beginning. Phenomenal. Mike Marriott, he's great.
That's what I hear.
Yes, he's phenomenal. And so I started working with him, and like I've met with other organizations and things, and I started doing things, working with other artists, and just putting myself out there, making a website, doing all that stuff, and
So
going for
do you
it.
have your own website?
I do, yes.
Okay. And do you sell your artwork?
I do. Mhm.
Cool.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes.
And how did it come about with meeting Mike in Opportunity Arts?
So it's really funny because for work, I was going to these networking meetings for MABA. And I'd seen him talking about, said that he was an arts promoter. And I was like, what? Like, that's a thing? Like, fine arts promoter? What? And I was like, I gotta talk to him. I just need to figure out how. And like, we ended up like mingling and networking. And then eventually we were introduced. And, I was like, should I? I was like, because again, like I feel like being an artist, there are times where a lot of us we have this vulnerability of not being sure of ourselves and our craft. I mean, a lot of artists, you'll see they'll sit and they'll work on a piece and then they'll be like, I don't like this, and they'll like throw it away or whatever. And they're like, no, don't throw it away. Like,
And
keep
it's
it.
never perfect, right?
Yeah.
There's never an actual finished product,
Well,
typically.
well, to them it's not perfect.
Right, right.
But to everybody else, they're like, oh my God, it's great, And it's like, that's why, like, don't throw away your stuff if you aren't confident in it. Like, that's one thing that I learned. Don't toss it. Just put it aside if it's irritating you.
Come back to it later.
Yeah, yeah. Or show somebody, even if you don't want to.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, what did you study at LCC for arts? What specifically? Was it just a general arts degree, or?
So, I have a degree in Arts Foundation, Associates in Art Foundation, and a Associates in Art History.
Okay. And
Yes.
what did you want to do with that?
Well, originally, Arts Foundation, I just wanted to do something with art. To me, I felt like if I was going to go to school and I was going to be paying for it, I want to invest my time and my money into something that's going to make me happy. So that's why I picked the Art Foundation. And then for the art history, it was more of like a studying of the craft, knowing like the masters and how they had done things. To me, I'm very into that. I like knowing about that stuff, their techniques and things, their past, their history. But also, at one point I was like, well, maybe I'll want to work in like an art museum or like do stuff in galleries or something like that, or maybe get into art restoration because that's a big thing too that you could do. Like it's stressful, but
I
just
could imagine.
yeah, different things. I was like, well, maybe I could kind of like start with art history, see where that takes me, and go from there. And
How many jobs are there in the art industry, locally? And locally, I mean like Michigan based, like recovering artwork or the galleries. Is that a pretty big field?
as far as art restoration, I can't speak on that. I do know that generically it's a very good career path, though.
Really?
Yes. But in Michigan, as far as like creative careers, like there's so much you can do. Like I think it's the thing about art, in my opinion, is that it is so overlooked. It is such a big part of everything going on. People don't realize it, and that's why they don't. I mean, you have logos, you have the way that a building is constructed, you have architecture, you have, standard graphic design, photography, video, like all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes under one area.
Right.
They're all
Yeah.
interconnected. And so I think that because of that, like people, and even with fine art, like there's so many ways to integrate fine art and everything. Like, even with my day job, like that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do something like that, because signs are a way that a business is getting a message across for what they do. It's what draws people in. that's art, you know?
Yeah, I mean that was like one of the things with like starting the podcast. I'm like, I have to have a logo that attracts people. Like when you see something, you want it to be like, oh wow, what is that?
Hmm.
That looks interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm actually kind of in the process too of creating I'm not doing it, but um, I had somebody create it and I didn't like it, but it's a video, like an intro video for the video of the podcast.
Hmm.
I'm like, it has to be something that is like significant, like that stands out to people, and it's a form of art.
Yeah. Huge form of art.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, there's so many things that come under the umbrella of art, right?
Hmm.
Like you said, architecture, painting, drawing, music,
Yes.
being a musician. That's a huge one, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different forms of that.
Poetry,
Poetry,
writing, yeah,
everything.
everything. Yeah.
Pretty much everything we consume on a daily basis is a form of art.
Yes, and that was the thing about the pandemic was because they got to a point where everyone's like in their house and they're like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? You know, and it's
Right.
like what are they doing? They're going online and they're just consuming all of this stuff. Like
Right.
they're paying attention to the local artists now. They're paying attention to these things going on because it's like it's right there.
Right.
You know, it's right in your home. And like it's so important that people, and not only that, but being able to inspire people to make things themselves, because like as an artist, you're doing these things, it's very therapeutic. I mean, that's the main reason I'm doing the event that I'm doing, is because it's based on something that has been very a struggle with me. And I was inspired by other artists to do it because I see them going out and using this craft to help themselves and work through their own things. I'm like, well, if I'm not doing that, then what am I doing? Like there was a point where people would ask me, why are you doing what you're doing? And it's like, well, I'm doing what I'm doing because, I mean, ideally everybody wants to go and take their life and do something that's going to make them happy. Well, what is happy though? Like what makes you happy? And that's something that I think when you take a creative career, any entrepreneurial career, or anything where you're like, all right, I'm going to do this thing. That's you going through and being like, you know what? I need to figure out like me. I need to know like what am I gonna why am I doing this thing? And that for me, that was one thing that being able to express these things that you go through and help other people, it's a big thing.
What kind of things do you mean exactly that you need to express?
Well, so essentially, okay, so I'm doing this event. It's called the Horrors of Love, and basically
It's called the what?
the Horrors of Love.
Horrors.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. So it's going to be a dark art event,
Okay.
rated R dark art event, and it's basically going into my head, into my psychosis of mental and emotional abuse in relationships. So it's not. I mean, while I touch on certain things that kind of happen, it's not really about that. It's more about like how I reacted to it mentally and how my brain coped with it, and like the journey of okay, going through these things and what do I need to do to come out of it and actually fully heal myself and like move forward and being like, okay, I've been through these things, how am I going to change this and then move forward to make everything better and healthier for myself, and work through that and come out confident. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. How did you come across this event? Is it an event you created?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So
interesting.
okay, so I went to the Creative Collective, Rita. She put on this event in September for suicide awareness, and her and Christine Ricky was a headliner, and they had talked about their experiences. It was a very powerful event. And I went in there, and like at the time, like and I've been dealing with my things for a while, like within myself and whatnot. But the thing about it is I get so closed off. Like I get really nervous about like talking about things. I'm open in my art, but not like when it comes to certain topics like that. I get like, oh, I don't know, especially with something like that where I feel it's kind of it's a hard thing to talk about. It's a hard thing to express. So I was like, oh, I don't know. And like just seeing all these people get together and they're like so open, and like I was just like bawling the whole time, and like I was like trying to keep myself together. And like I got home and whatever, and I was like, wow, like I was just like sitting with myself and like kind of like processing everything. And I'm like, if I'm not out there doing that same type of thing where I'm like expressing these things, like again, it's like what am I doing? You
want to be able to use what you've gone through as an experience to help other people through your expressions, right?
Well, yes, that, but also too, like, geez, like those artists inspired me,
Right.
and like being able to do that for other people, like, because anything, even for somebody who doesn't want to pursue a career in art, who can say, hey, this thing is bothering me, I'm just gonna draw a little thing about it, and just like have your mind just go into this meditative state where you're not thinking, you're not, the thoughts aren't, circling and whatnot. For that, being able to sit down and have that vulnerability with yourself to do that and like not judge yourself about it and just let it happen, like that's a big thing, you know and being able to hopefully help push people to do that, like other people push me. That's what matters, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, this event, when is the event, and where is it at? What
So
time and all that stuff?
yeah, no, absolutely. So it's gonna be in the auditorium, which is the little area right next to my studio. It's Opportunity Arts Auditorium, and so it's 1705 South Cedar. It's going to be on the 22nd and 23rd from 3 to 9 on Friday and 3 to 10 on Saturday. Friday is going to be the VIP day where it's going to be you come in and you can look, and I'm going to do a couple interviews, do a little reveal paint sort of thing for a piece that I have, and then we'll be able to talk, ask questions, things like that. And then Saturday is going to be the costume contest day where people can come in, and I want to do this costume contest where people will embody their fear. So taking something that they're scared of or something, and kind of embodying that and becoming more confident with it and having a contest about it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Um, Now, I don't know. You don't have to, we don't have to discuss this if you don't want to, but you obviously had mentioned that this event is based on um, abusive relationships, significant others being abusive. Have you experienced? Is this something you have great experience with?
Well, yes, it's more of a I would say it's more of a mental and emotional thing, and because that's kind of more of what I'm highlighting. It's not necessarily a full-on physical thing, because it is something that I've had experience with, and it's something that, how do I explain this? So I think that having a relationship where it's more verbal, right? The abuse is more verbal and mental. That's very hard to express because it's something that happens behind closed doors. You know what I mean? Like you get these people that they'll get together or whatnot, and in my experience specifically, it's people were like, oh my gosh, this is like when everything was all said and done, and I did my thing and I had left. It was like, like some people like, I didn't even really realize how serious this was. Like I knew that you were going through things, and like I could tell that things were off, but I didn't understand the depth of it. And I think that's because, again, like a lot of that stuff happened behind closed doors, and there's like certain things that happen where, depending on the person, it could be kind of a meditated thing, where they know, okay, well, um, being around certain people can kind of help clear their head of what's going on. Like they lose a control aspect. You know what I mean? So I think that it can be kind of harder to talk about, which is why I'm trying to do that, because it's something that needs to be talked about. And I'm seeing like this rise of people trying to talk about it because it's definitely a thing. But I feel like it's a very, I feel like to a point, and again, you have to be able to take the other person and make them accountable for what they're doing. And I think it's a very like, kind of like negative blame thing, where like, oh, it's the other person, it's the other, which to a point, again, you have to have accountability, but I think that it's further than that. So it's because for me, the big thing about this event was, okay, I keep putting myself or getting into these different relationships that are not good for me. Why am I doing that? It's a two-way. There's a two-party thing there.
Why do you think you do that?
I think for me it was because I wasn't confident in myself, and I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't think I was worthy of setting those boundaries. And because I had gone through these things, like I had to learn, okay, like it's okay if I say like I don't want to do something,
Right.
that's respected, you know, and that doesn't matter who you are or anything. And it's the same for if the other person says that they don't want to do something. It's my responsibility to say, okay, I understand that,
Right.
you know, and like just different things like that. And like, but the thing about this thing too is me, I'm focusing personally on romantic relationships because it's something that I've had a lot of experience with and that I'm currently working through, but it's also bled into other aspects of my life. You know, these things can happen at work, they can happen in family, they can happen with friends, they can happen with people, so many different people. And like starting again for me, like having the romantic relationships, it like the traumas and things, like for instance trust issues, right? Like for me, I had a lot of trust issues that stemmed from that I had to work through and I'm currently working through. But that bleeds into like being around my friends, and like I'll get like anxious over just silly stupid things that I don't need to worry about. But and it's not their fault. It's
Mm-hmm.
me,
Right.
you know? But it's the fact that okay, I have to be able to work through that, you know? And like realize that like there are these things that you have to look out for in all these different areas of your life, and maybe starting and focusing on one, you can kind of take those lessons and bleed them into the rest of your life, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how are you taking that and applying it to your artwork? So how does that inspire your art?
Well, there were a couple, and again, so the thing about this event, and like I have it fully laid out, like this event isn't aimed toward any specific relationship I was in.
Right.
It's a
Right.
concept of everything, and like I, you know,
Just in general.
exactly. But there were certain parts of my life and things I've experienced that coming from that I had made pieces based off of. So some of the art in this event is a little bit, a couple years older because I had started and finished it during certain hard times and like coming through that. But then there's also newer art after I had gone through these things and I, you know, was pursuing the things I want to do and I'm learning about myself, that I had added in there as well, to kind of like push the things that I've learned. So, with that being said, I think that actually going through things and like using it again as a therapeutic medium to get out things, along emotions and thoughts, along with being able to working on yourself every day, and then taking the things that you're learning and then making something out of that. That's kind of where it came from,
Okay.
you know. So,
Have you noticed a difference in the way your artwork appears to yourself, like after you complete something, as opposed to like before when you were in these bad relationships and you would go work on a piece, and then now with having the confidence or the whereabouts of knowing like you are more confident, you want to be more confident. Have you noticed any difference in your artwork?
yes, yes, and that being with this event too, like there's some pieces in there that are kind of, and again, it's a rated R event, but there's some
Why is it rated R?
subject matter is one big thing, along with the type of art. It's the darker art, so there's some touches of, you know, like sexual abuse and mental health and things like that. So that's the big drive for that. But uh, the pieces that I was putting in there being more, I guess that there was a point where I was always concerned, what are people going to think of this? You know, what are people going to think? And not just like subject matter, but like skill wise and things, especially when I was younger. And it got to a point, there was some pieces that I had done, they were flow acrylic pieces. And I was experimenting with abstracts at the time during college and like kind of trying to find my thing, which I don't really have a thing. I that was my thing. I found out I don't have a thing, but I was
That's good
messing.
though, because you're not limited.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. But I was messing with that, and I did this whole body, and like I got done with it, and I was like, you know what? I really like this, but I don't at the same time. I didn't, and it was like I don't know if it was just that it wasn't my style or whatnot. I enjoy I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process, but I was like, it's not the thing that I'm gonna like do a lot of, you know. And
Hmm.
like I was like, I felt like people were doing these like pours at the time, and that it's very popular, and I was like, you
What is a
know,
pour?
So it's kind of like think of like a water marble design, right? Where it's like the abstract mixing of the colors, and have you
Oh,
ever
okay.
seen? Yeah, those,
Yeah.
those. And I did this body of them, and I was so nervous to put them out though because I was like, well, I was nervous about what people thought. Like, it's. And me, I was self-conscious about, and I don't know why. That's the thing. Looking back now, I don't know why, but
Because you put your time and your effort and kind of emotions into it, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a vulnerable thing.
yes, it
It's
is.
like doing this podcast. You're putting things out there. People are gonna
Yes.
see it,
Yeah.
and they might judge you on it based on it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Same kind of concept.
Yeah. But I put it out there, and I have, out of 12 pieces, I have 2 left.
Wow,
So it was like,
that's awesome.
yeah. So it was like doing that, I was like, and that's why that kind of brought me to that point where I'm like, if artists don't like their stuff, don't throw it away. Like, don't, like, don't do that to yourself, because if you're not feeling comfortable about it, somebody else will probably absolutely love it. And that's what matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the impact that you have on somebody else.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And even if it's not perfect to you, it might be perfect to somebody else
yeah.
because they might not notice, the imperfections. I always tell my wife that because she paints and stuff, and we were at an event just recently. She's like, it's just that it's not done. I'm like, no, I don't think other people will notice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's so funny too, actually, that you say that, because my professor at LCC, he was great, Brian Bishop. That was one thing I remember. I was doing a piece. We were in oil. We were painting a flower pot, and it wasn't done. Like, it had the outline, like you saw, like the lines that I had drawn in it, and I'm like, you saw the pot, and that was painted, and you saw some of the flowers, and the background was done, but then there's this area where, like, I still wasn't sure what I was gonna do, and he's like, you don't need to finish it. I was like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? He's like, it looks almost finished as it is. Like, it has kind of a ghostly feel to it. Like, you don't have to, like, have this full idea of being a perfectionist almost. And that's one thing for me, is like, I'm a huge perfectionist. I overthink everything. I want everything to be like exactly how I lay it out in my head.
Isn't that how every artist is though about things?
Well, I mean, I think to a point, but I feel like every artist is individual too, like they have different ways of doing things, and depending on the type of style or the reasons why they're doing it. I mean, everybody's so individual,
Right.
you know.
Now, you said you don't have like a specific style or you're not limited to one style of art. Obviously, you do body painting, you do artwork, other artwork. Um, what do you have like a style that you gravitate most to? You said you do abstract things. Obviously, the face paint and everything, that's kind of abstract, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I feel like there's a couple things that I go to. The two main things would be like landscape and nature. I've always been really fascinated with the sky. I love the sky. Like, that's one of my favorite things. Like, seeing the sunset and seeing the sunrise. Like, it's different every day. It's different colors.
Do you go out there and watch it every day?
As much as I can. Yes. As much as I can. Like, I'll be driving and like I'll be like, I really want to look, but I need to pay attention, but I really want to see. Like, so like between that and nature, and I don't know, just appreciating just the natural environment around us, I think is so important, and we kind of can forget about that. So
What's your favorite kind of natural landscape?
that's a hard question. I love mountains.
Oh, I love
I
mountains.
love swamps. I
There's a
like,
beauty to swamps.
yeah, like a foggy swamp, like
Yeah.
right as like the
Yeah.
sun's, yeah. Oh, deserts though, that's something. Winterscape, seascape, yeah, just appreciating beauty, I think.
I remember a couple of years ago we went to I think I was telling Mike about this. We went to Georgia O'Keeffe's house and ranch and everything. It was an experience. Like I before that I never really had like an appreciation for her. Like, my wife is a huge fan of her. She has like her paintings and stuff, the prints or whatever.
Yeah.
And she has them around the house, and I'm like, oh, it's a painting, whatever. I'm not really like an artist. I wasn't really a connoisseur of it or anything. But then we went there, and it gave me a whole new appreciation for her artwork, for one. And what was kind of cool was at her ranch, they took us on a tour, and we get on a bus, and they take us it's out in the desert kind of,
Mhm.
and there's mountains and everything, and they hold up the paintings that she had painted at the exact location and what inspired those paintings. It made me have a complete new respect for her and her artwork. It was pretty cool. So
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I feel like, cause with art history and things, the more further back you go, like there's these gaps with the artists where like you have their work, but you don't actually know why they did it. Like
right,
it was like at the time the focus, which again, you want the focus to be on work. I mean, obviously,
right.
that's the huge thing, but
But everybody
there's
wants to know what inspired them, right?
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like their story and like who and that's one of the reasons why I loved art history was because like you can like you when you know an artist's life story and like you take that and when you're looking at their pieces and you're like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. That goes with this."
Right.
Like for Salvador Dali, one of my favorite artists, like his pieces, he literally put pieces of inspired by in Spain where he grew up, and like where he had lived. And, knowing that when you're seeing his surrealist work, I mean, you're not going to look at a Salvador Dali and know that unless you know his story.
Right.
You're just going to see a dreamscape essentially of these pieces that may or may not make sense to you,
Mm.
but knowing his experiences, like you really get in his head,
Right.
you know?
That was another thing too. Like when we went to go visit Georgia O'Keeffe, like I again I didn't know anything about her past, but when we went to visit her house, they're giving us the tour of her house, and they're telling us about her past and like her husband. I think she had a couple husbands, but she had uh, she married I think like an art promoter, right? You should know this.
It's for action in full honesty, I'm not sure.
So she married
Not for
somebody
her.
in New York City that I think opened an art gallery for her, and then she ended up leaving him and went to New Mexico and
Okay.
started or opened her house and then like bought into the ranch,
Mhm.
and then she also paid for running water for the village that she lived in because they didn't have running water.
Mhm.
It's
It's
just
amazing.
it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
super cool to like find all that out. It makes you have a complete whole new look on who she is as a person, not just an artist.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think that that's one thing too that we're kind of seeing more, even locally. Like people are they're wanting to know like the stories of people and why they're doing what they're doing. Like that stuff matters.
Mhm.
Being able to like have that kind of, because here's the thing, like when you're purchasing a piece of art from somebody, you're purchasing a piece of them. Like they're putting their
Right.
time into that. And it's one thing, especially for pieces where an artist says, okay, I have this idea, I have this concept, I want to put it, like it's fully from them.
Mhm.
Like to me that is kind of, yes, you're supporting them, but it's kind of like it's a very intimate thing where like I'm literally offering you a piece of me,
Right.
and that's
Well, and that kind of goes
huge.
back to what I was just mentioning when you said that um, you felt nervous to sell those pieces of art, and that's you. That's a part of you.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's just, I don't know, and that's one thing too, like starting my business or my art career. Um,
What business?
um, so just fine art, the fine art body
Mm.
painting, yeah, the contrasted content. For me, it was kind of, I didn't realize the self realizations I'd have to come to doing it, because they're like, in my experience with what I'm doing, that like I said, I don't have like one thing. My thing is I don't
Right.
have a thing. So like there's so many different avenues I can go down. Like I'm doing the Embody Your Business, which is working with businesses and painting like body painting logos for events. That's one thing. But also I'm doing like, the fine art events and things, trying to do my own, and then also going through and like doing the events and vendoring for other events going on and things, doing paints for them, also working with people that want to get photos done for like their own personal reasons. There's so many different things doing like, and having such a vast variety of options of, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and I love all of them, right? you have to be able to be like, okay, but what do I want to really pursue? Like, because there comes to a point where it's like, for me, it's like, I'm one person,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, and I have to be able to think, okay, what are the things that I'm going to want to do that are going to get across the messages I'm trying to get across, help do things for other people that will help them as well, but also, so to a point, I have to kind of narrow that down. But with all that comes to the point too of as a person, you know, like the with this event specifically too, like being like, okay, this is an avenue that I want to try to go down, and I need to be more expressive with certain things, and I want to help heal myself. That's a big thing, and it took a minute for me to be like, okay, I can do this. I can, because for a while I was like, I can't do, I just, it didn't come together,
How did you
you
get the
know.
confidence? I mean, because obviously you said you lack confidence. That's a thing you struggle with, and you're currently still working on.
Yeah.
But obviously you just said that you weren't able to muster up the confidence to do this,
Yeah.
but now you do.
Mhm.
You have it. How did that happen?
Well, I think it was definitely a gradual thing. I mean, shoot, you can ask Mike. When Mike first met me, I was super shy. Like, even when I was a kid, you know, I didn't really talk to many people. I wasn't, you know, I struggled with it, but over time, um, kind of getting to the point within yourself where you have to come to a point where you're like, okay, I have this thing, I want to do it, and you either do it or you don't, you know. And for me, it was kind of a thing where, yes, I was struggling with the confidence of it, but I guess at a point you have to not focus on that. It's more of a, am I going to regret? Take away the confidence, take away, what if I fail, what if I don't, worry about that.
Hmm.
What if I don't try? Am I going to be more upset with trying and failing, or am I going to be more upset with not even giving myself the opportunity, you know?
I don't even like to look at it as failure. You
Yeah.
know, like I mean, a lot of people would be like, that failed, but you know,
Right.
if you're wanting to completely, like, I mean, with anything, like if you start a business
Mhm.
and you know, you might put everything on the line. You might quit a job and a good job and then start a business and it doesn't work out, and then you know, you have to close up shop. Did it fail, or did you learn a lesson to move
Exactly.
on and then try it again, try something different?
Do you watch Gary Vee?
I do not. I don't even know who that is.
Okay, he's a entrepreneurial motivational speaker, and that's one thing that he talks about a lot. Actually, is like going into things, and like, if you, because I mean, you know, failure and success, it's all subjective, really.
Yeah.
You know, like what is success to you might be different to what success to me, which would be different to what success is to the next person, or you know. Um, but the thing about, he talks about that a lot, and it's about being able to take those things and be like, okay, you know, what do I need to adapt to this? Like, maybe this little thing didn't work, and if I did this thing differently, it would have turned out better, and now I'm going to get up and try to do it again. Or maybe that's just not the thing that I want to do, or maybe there's a thing that's not working out. Maybe I'm going to go this way. And that's one thing that um, I'm thankful that I am able to do, because with so many different options, if I decide to go and try to do one thing, again, if it doesn't work, I can try to do something else. And I think that a lot of people have these opportunities and these things within them, but they don't, if they don't give themselves the room to like just do it,
Right.
then they hold themselves back, and that's something that,
Well, and it's something you kind of have to have passion for too, right? You know,
yes.
because like let's say you're starting a business and you don't have a passion for it. It's just something you want to do because you know you can make a lot of money doing it if it works out. But if it's, so let's say it doesn't work out, then what? You don't have a passion for it, then you're just kind of back to square one. You
Yeah.
didn't learn a lesson. You learned that what you did failed, and you probably won't do it again.
Well, and that's that thing too about, like, again, knowing yourself is
Right.
that big thing.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, trying to start a business, it's a lot of work.
Tell me about it.
It's a lot. And if you're not passionate about it, I don't know, for me, I couldn't. Like, if I was to try to,
You could if you wanted.
well, I mean,
That's that confidence right there.
Maybe. But I'm just saying, like, if I was like, all right, well, I don't know, I'm gonna start an accounting business, me personally, I'd fail
Well,
because I'm just not.
you're not passionate about it.
Right.
You don't care about math or money.
Yeah, I could not pull 16-hour shifts every day doing it wouldn't work for me.
Right.
And that's why like doing these things and it's different.
Mhm.
And even with the job that I do have currently, like my day job, like I enjoy it, like working with science and things, and being able to find these things that it's just really important for stimulating ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now you brought some artwork, right?
I did.
I would like to see some of this.
So I brought 3 pieces. We'll start with this one. So I thought these are actually a couple pieces that are going to be in the event that I kind of wanted to talk about. A couple of them are pieces that I've shown everywhere. Like if you've seen me at vendor events and things, I'll have them set up. And I think that they're kind of these pieces where people are like, they like them. They're kind of like I think that they like the ideas behind them, but they don't really know the story behind them fully because they're just out on display, when you're in your environment. It's not really like a gallery showing.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to talk about those because they've been seen so much. But also there's another piece I brought too that I have not like shown yet. It's going to be in the event, but it's a piece that I didn't know how to express what I wanted to say behind it. I had it done for a couple years.
Wow.
But I just didn't know how to like express the feeling behind it properly, and I was nervous about it. So we'll get into that, but the
Cool.
first piece...
I'm excited that this is the first time you've shown it and it's on my podcast.
Yes. So the first one is this one. It is called Stress. I don't know.
Yep, the camera can see it.
Perfect. So, and again, this is one of the ones that were at a lot of things. I show it often, so a lot of people,
How did you do that?
So it's a black canvas with white acrylic ink and also acrylic paint.
Okay.
So it's mixed media. And I actually had done this during a panic attack I was having in 2017. And I had put these are my actual handprints that I put on there. And I, at one point, like, part of the mouth is, like, part of my actual mouth, but not the whole part, but I did to, like, get the shape. But I wanted it to kind of have this icy, isolated, like, it's like you're there, but you're not there feel. You know what I mean?
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So during a panic attack is when you created that.
Yes.
What was your state of mind at that point? Were you just like, I need to capture this? I need to capture this moment? Because I would assume, like most people in a panic attack probably can't do much. What was your thought process?
For me, it was I need to do something.
Okay.
Because you get to a point and where when you're in that mindset, and again, it's different for everybody.
Right.
But for me, it's like I would not be able to, like, I would kind of sit and just spiral in thought. You know what I mean?
And just make it worse.
And yeah. And so it's like, okay, if I'm able to take this and get, again, it's that meditative state thing where you're just doing it. Because
Right.
if you start, if you're in, I had a therapist once that told me, when you get into modes where you don't want to get up, you don't want to do anything, or where you wake up and you're like, I don't want to get out of bed. That's the most important time to get out of bed and do
Exactly.
something.
Yeah.
So, like, and again, it's different for everybody, but for me in this moment, it was a matter of I just need to get my mind off of everything. I need to be able to take a step back and I need to do something. And so I just did that. So this is what came from that.
Did you find that helped?
Yes. And it's something, too, where, like, when I look at it now, I'm like, okay, I think that it can help express kind of what I was feeling during that. But more importantly, it's something where, like, okay, being able to do these paintings and do these things are, again, it's therapeutic. It's something that can help really clear your mind. And,
right.
yeah. So That one was that one. The next one is called Man Left Behind. And again, this is another one that people see a lot.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's intense.
Yeah.
There's kind of a lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
Like I obviously the first thing I noticed when I looked at it was the person with things coming out of its eyes.
Yeah.
But then like I get a whole scope of it, and then it kind of looks like there's like maybe woods and maybe a cabin and a moon.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Or
kind of
then maybe even people.
yeah. See,
That's
and that's the thing.
interesting.
It's you have to really kind of study and be like, what's going on here?
Almost looks like there's a waterfall too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So originally, idea it's kind of like a house idea of like outline of a house, right? And then yes, there are the people in the back,
Okay.
that are kind of standing, and it's the concept of when I had done this piece. It was in 2019, and I was in one of these relationships that I was in. It was one of the harder ones that I'd gone through, and I just remember being in this state of like being really depressed, and like I was like, but at the time I didn't know why. I didn't like I not fully. Like I knew that where I was in, eventually if things weren't going to change, I was going to have to leave, and like, you know, but when you're in that headspace and you're in the relationship and everything as it is, it's very hard to like actually grasp that. So like I was kind of battling with these like, okay, well, you know, is this actually as bad as what I think it is, or am I just, you know, overthinking everything, or you that sort of concept. And
I'm sure it's difficult too because things get better for a time and then
yeah,
they go right back, and
yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of this like, you know,
it's a
that
roller coaster.
right, and that's where like, you know, what people say as like love bombing, or whatever, where people are, you have your time of the negativity, and then it turns around, and then it's like total 360, and it's like, you know, great, phenomenal, you know, and then it turns right back, that like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Going through that, and it's just kind of this idea of, you know, well, maybe this isn't the right place for me, and this thought of maybe one day I'm gonna have to walk away from everything that's like my whole entire life right now. And
What do you mean by that?
well, because at that time, like I was living in a different place. I had all the people that were in my life, or you know, like they are not currently here. You know, and I mean, people go through these times and phases, and I feel like everybody goes through that. Where,
Right.
you know, I mean, geez, being a kid in school, like you have your whole friend groups and things, and then you grow up and you realize that everybody has their own things that they're gonna do in their own past. Everyone's moving away, and just that, you know, life changes like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like it's kind of unavoidable. You know, eventually at some point, everybody's going to have to get up and pursue their own thing. And sometimes you're going to be that person that's doing the walking away. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And it's not, you know, maybe the most brightest scene, but it's important, you know, because if you don't go through that, then you'll be stuck,
Right.
you know.
Now, did you do this when you were in that relationship?
I did. Yeah.
And did you do this before you came to the realization that you needed to leave?
Fully, yes, I did. It
And
was
so
kind
after
of,
you did this, what was your thought process on your relationship?
it was, I felt like I knew, like deep within myself. I think that sometimes we get into these things where we don't really, it's like, it's just, we don't want to believe it. We don't want to let it go.
Well, I mean,
You
because
know?
you love that person too. I mean, regardless of their faults and
Yeah.
their mishaps, you know that it's going to get better for
Yeah.
a period of time,
Yeah.
and then it doesn't, or does, and then it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It
that's
makes it hard.
and that's the thing too with and with this whole thing is like, and that's why like because even though like we need to hold people accountable for their actions and things, because there are certain things where like it's not okay what you're doing, But like for me, one big thing was I would, look at the people that I was with, and I would look at their lives as a child and like the things that they went through, and I would see like the things that they struggled with on a day-to-day basis, and like I would consider that and be very empathetic with that, but there comes to a point where you have to like there has to be like the growth from that, and
You got to seek out help.
yeah.
If it's affecting your daily life, your relationships, the people that you love, then you gotta get help for it.
Yeah, and people want the help too.
Right.
You know.
Because I'm a big believer in that. Even if, let's say, somebody is, emotionally and mentally abusive, they can change. Um, I just think that, a lot of times, like you had mentioned, it's their past, their childhood and trauma and whatever they went through that, has created them to be the way they are.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're not completely that person, right? They're not always typically abusive. They
Right.
they come back around and they are overly loving and caring after
Yeah.
a situation,
Yeah.
and then it goes back,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they need to get help,
Yeah.
and try to work their issues out.
Yeah, and you see like the good things too. I mean, and I don't think anybody really comes across, or they would like want not. Nobody would want to be with somebody that's just totally terrible.
Right.
You know,
Typically.
like right. There are these certain things that you see, and that maybe they're motivating, or they're
Right.
very good with knowing certain things, that helping or with certain things, or just being very loving and showing affection, or whatever the case may be. But again, it's just knowing me as a person. Here's what I can offer you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I need, and knowing that, being like, I have needs. And that was the thing for me, is like, I didn't express that. I didn't have those boundaries of, uh, hey, I really need this thing, and I really need you to respect that. Can you do that for me? And then if they are like, no, okay, well, I get that, but I can't
Mm-hmm.
be a part of that, and that's the thing, is it doesn't have to be, like, I don't know, I wish it didn't have to be, as harsh and complicated as it can be at times, but
Yeah, it's difficult.
yeah.
It's very difficult.
It is, and that's why I like the challenge of being able to talk about it, because like I feel like it, like you said, it's difficult, but it's important.
I think the most important thing is for people to learn self-confidence and to be confident in themselves, and to, like you said, set standards and guidelines, and that way people know what to expect. And, like, yeah, you may get into a bad relationship with somebody, but if you have those things, you're confident in yourself, somebody can't tear that down if you're
Yeah.
confident enough.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll be like, you need to go.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, is like, if you're going to be with somebody, like, you, first of all, you should never feel like you're confident. They should be very supportive of you, and then you should be supportive. Like, the idea that two individual people are living two individual lives, that they can come together, and when they are together, that they can do
Enjoy.
great things together,
Right.
and support each other, and work through things together, and be a team.
Right.
That's kind of that's what you need. And then if you go back apart, and then you keep doing your things, but you're still, you're still on the same team,
Yeah.
but you're just fighting different battles. That kind of a thing, and then coming back together, and then, oh, we got to take this together. All right, let's go from there. That kind of a thing. I think that if we had that mindset more, instead of like, oh, well, you're mine, and it's a
Right.
possessive thing, and well, you can't do this unless that's where that kind of boundary of, okay, that open communication, and you have to have those, there's certain things I'm not comfortable with, but at the same time, like, it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice to make those things.
This is a kind of a personal thing for me, but I grew up in a real fucked up. I've had a real fucked up life, like childhood specifically. I don't know if you've listened to any of my podcasts, but I was in foster care, got taken away from my mom. Like, my family dynamics are just all over the place. So my idea of what a good relationship, my idea of past tense of a good relationship was kind of tainted. You know, I didn't really have any good role models or anything.
Yeah.
So going into adulthood and having relationships was very difficult for me.
Yeah.
You know, there was times where I was, you know, mentally and emotionally abusive to some of the people I was with.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why I say I feel like people can change, is because, you know, I was that person.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, for one, I wasn't confident in myself. And I don't know why. Probably because of my past, you know, just the way people had talked to me, you know, like my adopted mom. If you go back and listen to my episode where I talk about these things, I kind of explain, you know, some of the things she's done to me. But, you know, a lot of the things she did tore down my confidence. And so going into adulthood, I wasn't confident in myself. Like I felt like everything I did, like I'm a loser. I moved out when I was 17. You know, I'm barely making it in life. And, you know, I don't know. Then you look at your peers in school, and you know, they're off doing awesome things. They got a driver's license, they have a car, you know, they got all these things that I didn't have. And so you just feel like a loser. And then again, me going into adulthood, I have to work for everything I had.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of, it's the cycle of life, you know?
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I realized at a young age, because a lot of people don't realize it at a young age. They get, you know, into multiple relationships, several divorces before, you know, it's too late.
Yeah.
And then they realize they need help.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I realized I needed help. And so I seeked out therapy, and it helped tremendously. And then I got really big into like working out, and that helped boost my confidence, you know. And honestly, like now I'm great. Like I love my relationship. Like, you know, I've had bad relationships, and the thing is because I was a bad person in a relationship, the people that I attracted to weren't also good for my relationships as well, you know. So it's a balance as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, with the insecurity. That's a huge thing.
It's huge.
It is, because it affects both sides. So, you know, both people, you know, I mean, and there's different ways of handling that. Like, everyone handles that insecurity so differently.
Yeah.
Like, for me, with my insecurity, it was, you know, well, I need to, like, always look pretty and, like, you know, do these things to, like, try to make somebody approve of me. You know, I was looking for that approval from somebody else. When it's not really about the approval from somebody else. I need to improve myself. I need to wake up now. Like, now I'll get out of bed and I'll like not put on makeup and like go to work. Like, just not, you know, but before it's like, I like, there would be times in school where like if I didn't have my hair straightened, it was nightmare fuel for me.
But do you think that has something to do with like how other kids are in school too? Because I mean, obviously there's, you know, other girls in school who are straightening their hair and trying to look their best, and you know, it's like a time in your life when you want to look good for the guys or whoever you're attracted to. You want their approval. So you want to do your best to kind of, you know, look your best.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I think that's a thing that a lot of like younger kids and things, especially in the school setting, like, you know, I mean, that's just, you know, everybody's wanting to, you know, be
somebody they're not.
Yeah. You know, and I think for me though, like, a lot of it was like people that I was with at the time or whatever, but again, it's just that the big thing of it is that having that self-love, you know, like, and I think that when you're growing up and you're in school though, that's why it's so difficult, because that's when you're kind of getting to the point where when you're done with school, like, that's when it's gonna hit hard, because all those people, like, everything that's constructed around you is gone,
right?
And then it's just you,
and it kind of gives you a false sense of what life is like, it's a false narrative, like, of what life's actually like. Like, people don't care if your hair's straight or if it's curly or if you have makeup on. Typically they don't.
And like there was this one time, like, there was horrible humidity. I had my hair done, and then like I was at school and it just started curling, and for me it was like I just was having this, it's so silly to talk about now. Like, it's ridiculous, but I was at the time, I'm like in 10th grade and I'm like freaking out at school, and everyone's like what's your deal? And I'm just like, you don't get it. But and that's the thing, it's
Is that an anxiety thing?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
It was back then though, because again, I didn't. I was looking for that validation elsewhere.
Right.
You know,
Right.
in very silly ways, like things that don't make any sense at all. But the last piece I'll have now. This is the one that I actually have not shown yet. It's going to be featured at the event.
Awesome.
This was done in uh, 2019. Yes, because it was right after I had like actually left this really hard relationship that I was in. But
Whoa.
yes, it is called The Death of Innocence.
Hmm.
So what do you see? I want to ask what you see in this.
Okay. I see a bunch of different things. I see a skull for one. That's the noticeable thing. I see what looks like a necklace up in the top right corner. I see a ring. And it looks like bones. Some sort of bones. And there's something at the top. I can't really tell what that is. Like maybe a ring
Yeah.
or a moon ring. Yeah, I don't know what that is on the bottom right corner.
Okay. So
That is very cool. First of all,
Thank you.
what is that? Like,
So-
what is the it's not paint. What is it?
it's acrylic ink.
Acrylic. Okay.
Yeah, acrylic ink. And also I did use a little bit of acrylic paint. I kind of like mixing the two. I had a big time where I was using a lot of acrylic inks. Love them. But so this, and so basically, okay. So this portion right here, this is a blanket, right? It's a pink blanket. It's really dirty. Gross,
Okay.
You know. And then you have the necklace. You have two rings, the skull, and the bones. So the idea behind this piece, the skull is actually kind of small. Symbolically, this represents the death of the values that I had thought relationships were when I was a kid. So I had this idea, like growing up, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna grow up, I'm gonna meet this guy, we're gonna get married, we're gonna have kids, it's gonna be great. We're like, it's just all fall in place. But yeah, and it doesn't work like that.
No.
So like, you know, you grow up with this idea of like, okay, well, here's what your role is kind of supposed to be, right? And I had gotten to this relationship where I had gotten engaged, and I was like, you know, like at the time I was like, okay, well, this is the thing, like this is the, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Like this is how life is supposed to play out, you know. I'm at the age kind of where I'm seeing people get married, whatever, you know. And I was like so, at the time, like excited and happy and everything, and everything happened, and again, this was in that really hard relationship that I was in, and going through all the things that I went through, after I left, and I went through all the things I had experienced, I was like, what is, like, it was like that concept that I had was just obliterated. I was like, I don't even know if I want this. I don't even think I'm actually ready for that. I think, you know what I mean? Because like it's such to me, a very big commitment. And I was so ready at the time. But after everything and like really learning more about the person and the things that I went through, it just totally changed.
How old were you?
22.
22.
Yeah. So, because I mean, it was in 2018 to 2019, like early 2020. So yeah, it was like a couple of years.
Okay.
Very short time, but yeah. So I mean, I'm still young. I'm 24 now. Like, you know, like everyone, you know, but it definitely it changed a lot of my ideals, and it was kind of this.
So, I'm sorry, before you put that away, can you explain the different things and why you put them in there? Like, there's a blanket there, there's some bones and a necklace and a couple of rings.
So the bones kind of they symbolize like me and my old ideals and wants as a kid from growing up, and you know, because I had, like I'd said, I'd always had this idea of like I was always like looking for this love and this validation elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like having that person that's like, I want to be with you, like that's,
Right.
isn't that an ultimate idea of being validated, right? Somebody wants to spend their whole life with you, like that's a huge thing, you know, like wow, like you want to do that with me, like what, you know what I mean? And you know, and so there was that, and then, you know, the rings are like they're symbolic of the rings that we actually, they're based off of the rings that I had actually had, in the relationship, and the necklace was a gift, from that, so that's why I'd thrown that in there too. And the blanket in there is kind of to make it, more of like, you know, like it's little girl's blanket, you know, and it's kind of like buried in this scene of where like it was just like kind of, it's kind of like almost like a little bit of a homicidal scene almost, where like you're digging in the woods and you're finding this stuff and you're like, what is this all here for? That's kind of the feel I was trying to give, because like it is something that to a point I felt at the time of making this was taken from me. Like I had this idea that I wanted, and like this thought of love and what it was supposed to be, and it was kind of just like obliterated and scattered everywhere. And I was like, how, like, you know, my feelings and thoughts on that stuff was just totally different after that. It just
Completely
changed my
shattered.
perspective.
Right.
And it's not to say, you know, now that like I you know, don't want to, you know, go through, like I still have those things. I just feel like now I'm a lot more equipped and like more
Right.
mentally, you know, sound for those things. But that concept, yeah, that was very hard for me, because it was a very personal piece, and I didn't know, you know, people who were in my life at the time, like they'll see that the jewelry in there, they'll know like what it looked like in real life,
Right. Right.
you know, and it was like, so that's something
Well,
that,
you see the ring, the engagement ring in it, and obviously that's personal.
hmm
I mean, I didn't know the story, but I could see the picture and know that that was a personal, some sort of personal belonging, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you
and
see the skull and the bones, and it represents like kind of like a death.
yeah, yeah. So that piece is one of my favorites.
I like that piece. It was very cool.
Thank you.
I actually, I don't think the camera was able to pick it up. Can I hold it and hold it in front of the camera?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know that the glass might.
Yeah, there's like
the
a glare.
reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yeah, other way. There you go. There we go. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, now that I actually have it up closer, I can actually see the detail, which is really, really crazy. I like that. I like the detail in the skull. That is really cool.
Thank you.
Now, what kind of things do you sell on your website? Do you sell things like that?
A lot of it's originals, some prints.
Okay.
I'm actually going to be going through, because I've been working on so many different things. I'm going to be totally re-going through like the inventory and things that I have on there. Especially with this event too, like once that's done, like I want, because there's these new pieces that I want people to be able to kind of get prints of and things, so I'm going to be like working through, but I want to make sure that I actually have the event done first and people like get to be able to experience it all in person,
Right.
with the full like descriptions, because that's the thing about this event is it's not something where you're gonna be able to kind of go through, kind of glance at everything and then like walk out and feel like you're not gonna know. You're gonna have to sit and you're gonna have to like read the things.
You're gonna have descriptions of
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's very like,
It's all personable.
yeah, it's personable, but it's almost like a dark, surreal kind of feel to it. It's like kind of, again, it's more of the like psychosis in the mental. So it's more of, it's more combobulated, I guess. So, if that makes sense.
So I have a couple different questions, and I'm just gonna state it, and we can just kind of go through it real quick, or not quick, or whatever. So somebody coming into the art gallery and who view all your artwork, and it's gonna have like this kind of dark feel, and they see that, let's say that last piece that you showed is their last piece that they view. it's gonna leave them kind of like with a sense of like like kind of an emptiness and like maybe a sadness for maybe not for you, but just in general. Is there some sort of hope or light at the end of the tunnel? Is
So actually, that is not how I want people to leave.
okay, and
There
hold
are.
on, hold on. And then also my other question is,
Uh-huh.
what is the your main goal for
Yes.
this event? What do you want people to leave with, knowing and feeling?
So there is this one piece, and I'm gonna lightly touch on it because I want people to experience it in person when they're there.
Okay.
And I was this close to bringing it, but I was like, oh, like I want people to see it in person because it's gonna be a totally different like.
Well, we don't want to give away everything.
Right. Right. But so at the end of this, because yes, you're going to go in there and there's a trigger warning and there's going to be pieces that you're going to go in there and be like, what? Like, it's like, what is that? And then there's going to be other pieces where you're like, where it could trigger that.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's going to be these pieces that it does show that light. There is an aspect because the whole idea again is there is a inner self reflection aspect of that a lot of people forget when they're talking about these things again, and that's the thing that I'm really trying to portray, is that concept of being able to be mentally and really in tune with yourself enough and reflecting in yourself enough to be like, because again, you have two people, in any, at least two people, right? Whether it's work or whatever aspect, there's you and then there's other outlying things that are happening around you or people that are involved. But at the end of the day, you're in control of you.
Mm-hmm.
You do have a say. You are a person, you're an individual. Big things happen on mass scales because several individuals get together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being able to take that inner reflection and process that and work through that, that's the big thing. That is that light. Like, you're not, this isn't a thing where you are stuck, you know. You have options, you have choices, you have feelings, and you can work through those and you can take those and you can make something, you can make it better. You can come out of it. You can communicate better.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to work with somebody, but if it don't gets to a point where it's not working, you can walk away from that. Or you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you have the choices. And that's the thing, that is the light that a lot of people don't reflect on. I don't know if you use TikTok a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of threads on my TikTok that talk about emotionally, and a lot of these things, like, I'll watch them and I'll be like, some of this stuff makes sense, but some of the stuff is really negative. It's really negative and it's very
How so?
blameful. Well, like, a lot of times I feel like people get on there like, well, oh, my ex was like narcissistic and they're this and they're the, which, again, you go through things and they probably did do really not good things. And you want to talk about it, you want to express it. But again, when you're in these relationships, and this is why it's hard to talk about, because it's behind closed doors and you're not expressing the other person's the things that they've been through and
Right.
whatnot. Or maybe, like, there are times, I mean, I'm not perfect, no one's perfect in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where I didn't know how to communicate things. I didn't know how to communicate my boundaries properly.
Right.
I mean, and that's still something that I was still trying to figure out and work through. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm insecure about something and I don't know, like, if I don't know myself, if I can't love, and that's the thing, a lot of people will get frustrated, like, well, don't tell me I can't love somebody else if I don't love myself. You can love somebody else and not love yourself, but you can't potentially do it in a healthy way unless you are very, very good at being healthy to another person and also simultaneously kind of neglecting yourself. Like, there has to be a point where you have to, like, come to that, because here's the thing, like, if you're with somebody and they don't love themselves and they're very, like, self-deprecating, doesn't that hurts the person they're with, because they're like, why are you like that? Like,
Right.
not in a bad way, but why? Like, I see so much beauty and good things
Yeah.
And just seeing, you being so harmful to yourself for no reason,
Right. Yeah,
you know?
that's definitely a huge problem. I mean, because that was part of my problem when I, first got into relationships. I remember my first girlfriend, like I had a I started dating her when I lived at home still, and because I started dating her, that's what kind of forced me to move out. So because of that, I put all my hope and trust and love and everything into her.
Yeah.
Everything. I gave her everything she wanted.
Yeah.
And I neglected myself
Yeah.
and didn't focus on myself because she was my future.
Yeah.
She was my escape,
Yeah.
and it ultimately just ended in heartbreak. Didn't
Yeah.
we didn't work out obviously.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and that's the thing though is like, you know, that's why it's a 50-50 thing because if we put everything, because I was the same way, with like the first person I was with, I was like just in awe, like I was like, oh my, like, and it was all about what they thought about me. Like they could tell me, well, I don't like your makeup today, and it would just like ruin my day, and I would
mm.
be like, oh my, like why, like what, like I'm trying to do this for you,
What
or
asshole would say that? I would never say that to anybody I
well,
was with.
well, I mean, but and the thing about it is too is like if you're so like stuck, like if all you have is, you know, trying to put forth something and you're not doing it for yourself, like, what are they gonna do for you?
Right, exactly.
And it's not supposed. And again, these things aren't supposed to be where it's like a one all be all.
Mhm.
It's you both having that appreciation for yourself and knowing what you want to do, doing the things that you want to do, and having fun and doing it together and having like that open trust and talking about things and just being honest and communicate like that. It's I feel like relationships are the most complex simple things. Like the idea an actual healthy relationship is a very simple concept, but it is very complex because everybody's so individual. Everybody has different needs. Everybody has a different perception of life and what they want out of it and what makes them happy and what they view as successful. You can't have somebody who, maybe, I mean, you can. Again, everything's subjective, but if you have somebody who's like, okay, I want to have a life where I run a giant business and I want to do something, great, and I'm like in like helping people and doing all these things. And then you have somebody else who's like, well, I just kind of want to be able to just,
Chill.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it could work. It could,
Mhm.
but for that to work, it's communication.
Right.
And that's really being able to compromise.
There's a lot of compromise there because, I mean, for instance, last year I started training for a 50-mile ultra run.
Mhm.
And in order to do something like that, you have to be real dedicated. You have to train every single day. You have to run at least 10 miles a day. And you have to have at least one long run a week.
Mhm.
So I was running every Sunday for like 20, well, not every Sunday, but, like leading
Mhm.
up to the race.
Mhm.
Um, I was running like 25 miles like a day or
Mhm.
every Sunday.
Mhm.
And to do that, it takes like 4 hours out of your day to do that. So that is sacrifice on the other person's part, and that's something that has to be agreed upon.
Yeah.
I don't know if my wife necessarily agreed to it because she doesn't like how insane I get, but um she was understanding, and actually by doing that, I was able to kind of find who I was as a person
Right.
because I was able to push through and have like a newfound like respect for myself.
Yeah. See, but that right there though is like a very good example of a boundary. It's
Right.
not necessary. Boundary isn't necessary. I mean, it is being like, I don't want to do this. Like saying that's a boundary, right? But having that, it's a boundary too, of being like, hey, this is something that means a lot to me. It takes a lot of time. It's something I
Right.
have to dedicate. Can you work with me in
Mhm.
regards to that?
Yeah.
And like, is that okay? Like, in this relationship, are you gonna be okay with me being a little AFK? Like, are
Right.
you gonna like, can we work through that? And that's the because with and having her like, okay, let's do this thing. Like it'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like that's how it's supposed to go.
Right.
And like those things, those are like the boundaries that like are really important because like being able to truly be your authentic self and be accepted for that is everything.
Yeah.
And like yeah, so that's the type of stuff that like hopefully I can express, that I'm trying to express it in this event, because like, you know, that's definitely the big thing, being able to be like, you know, and that it's the same for the other person too, though. You know, if she or like the other person has a thing that they want, can you are your needs, are you gonna be met?
Right.
You know, and it's different for everybody, and that's between two people that they have to work out, and you know, is this gonna work or not? And that's only those two people can do that.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, they have to be open and be vulnerable and be like, hey, like this means a lot to me. Like, can we do this? And if not, then if it's not working, being honest with yourself. Well, is this a good choice? You know, is this good for me and you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking all, because when you're involving somebody else, you have to think of yourself, but it's a 50-50.
Right.
You have to, you know, but at the end of the day, it's doing what is healthy for you and thinking of the other person too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simplistically complex.
That's why it's important to work on yourself, you know, before you get into a relationship. Like I had mentioned, working out helped me tremendously. You know, like getting in shape and having that self-confidence and like pride. Not like the overconfidence, like where I'm in like the mirror, like,
yeah.
like, you know,
right.
but, you know, like knowing that, you know, you can push yourself through something very difficult, because workouts aren't easy, you know, and if you're able to push yourself through something difficult, the chances are of caring about something that comes up in your relationship probably more than likely won't be an issue.
Yeah.
You know, like for me, when I work out, it helps me feel, it makes me feel less stressed, and like I approach things differently. I don't get like as agitated about things as easy.
Yeah.
You know, it just helps. It helps my mental state of being, helps with everything.
Yeah, dopamine release.
Yeah, absolutely.
yes. Yeah, 100%. And it's the same thing with, like, for me, it's the art thing, you know, like that's my space, that's my meditative, you know, area. I'm putting in, you know, and having somebody being able to work through that, like whatever the passion or that release may be, that means something to you. Like, people, like, you know, you want to be encouraged with that.
Right.
You know, you want somebody that encourages that, you know.
Yeah.
And same for the other person. You want to be able to encourage them, like, and see them flourish. And,
right.
And love the process of watching them do that.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's super cool to watch somebody get excited about something too. Yeah. Like, I know when my wife gets like she finishes a painting or something, she's like, "Look at this!" Like, isn't that? I'm like looking at it like, didn't it look like that before?
Yeah.
I'm not an artist. Like, I look at him like, okay, that looks, it looks like the way it looked when I left the house.
But
and,
still the support, you
but
know?
It's the support. Like,
yeah.
you know, for instance, I left one day and I took the kids with me, and she painted all day, and she came back and she was super excited to show me the painting. And I wasn't probably as supportive as I should have. I was like, oh, like, did you finish it? Did you do it? What did you do to it? And she, you know, it's kind of offensive because I didn't acknowledge the fact that, oh, it's completely finished. You did change the whole thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I again didn't really notice the difference. So.
Well, and I mean, for that too. But see, you have, because there are a lot of artists, like, they'll be with people that maybe they're not really accustomed to that realm. But the thing about it is that you're still there, and like you're supportive. You know what I mean? And even though, like, you may not understand certain things about it, it's your presence, you know, and the fact that, like, you're still, like, you know, because I mean, there have been, and again, like, not all the relationships that I've been in have been, you know, bad. Like, I've been with people that are very very good people, and like, you know, and there'd be times where, like, I'd do something and they don't really fully understand it either, but it's like, but they're still there, and like they're still receptive of it, and they're still like, you know, maybe I don't get it, but I still think that what you're doing is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all about it's all about supporting that person and what they're doing. You know, obviously you may not be into what they do. You know, I'm not into art. Like, I like art. I appreciate art, but I'm not, you know, actively an artist. Which Mila said I was, because I did all that stonework. You can knock him down. Hey, don't hit him. he'll like walk around the table, bump the mics and stuff. He's done that several times before.
Oh,
um,
baby.
yeah. But what was I getting at? I was talking about the stone and everything, and Mila's like, "Yeah, you're an artist." I'm like, "I don't know if I see it that way."
But it's
Um,
true because there's a design layout format. You want to have it look a certain way. It has a certain aesthetic. You're putting it together. I mean, I'm sure that were you outlaying the colors a certain way when you were doing it? What was your process behind
well, I'm just gonna say that I didn't do the colors. My wife did. Um,
that?
I pretty much am responsible for cutting everything and maybe slapping on the adhesive and putting on the back, whatever you had to attach it to. Um, but I guess I did have something in mind of what I wanted it to look like,
Mhm.
and then being able to accomplish that kind of gives you that art, like the artist mindset,
Yeah.
the creative mindset.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it's art, but
No, it is 100%. And like architecture.
right, yeah,
I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright.
right, right, yeah.
Like, yeah. Don't get me started. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing though. Like, but that's a perfect example of that's a art form, but you kind of overlook it because it
Right,
seems like a very average, but
right,
it's very prominent. It's still there.
yeah,
You know, so perfect example of
yeah.
that.
And I don't remember where I was going with that. I mentioned it for a reason. I don't remember now. So thanks, Oliver, for screwing that one up. Um, so let's see here. We're an hour and 24 minutes in.
Oh wow, that went by really fast.
Super quick, super quick.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, you might have Mike beat if you wait like 10 more minutes. um, where can people find your artwork?
So online, you can follow my page, Contrasted Content. I'm on Facebook, contrasted_content on Instagram, TikTok. So those are my main
What do you
platforms.
do on TikTok?
I do a lot of, I'll like show the events I'm doing. I'll do different body paints showing like the process of going through them. I've been
Okay.
doing some photo shoots, so like doing some behind the scenes stuff and like highlighting the photos and projects I'm doing. So it's kind of like a mix of just like showing me and what I'm working on basically.
Cool.
Things that I'm in the process of doing. Yeah.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah.
And the event is next week, right? Next weekend.
Yeah.
Friday's the VIP,
Yeah.
Saturday, and not Sunday, right?
Not Sunday.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
And there's two shows on Saturday?
So the Saturday is basically that's just a standard day where like you can just come in, walk around, look at everything as
Okay.
you please. But then there's the costume contest. So there will
What
be.
are you doing for a costume?
I think I I can't really reveal it.
Mm.
I can't be and here's why because it's gonna correlate to a VIP aspect of it.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's something you'll have to come see if you like to. But
How does somebody get into the VIP?
it's just the VIP. So the VIP ticket, it's uh, $35 and it covers both days. So you have access to both days and the costume contest, and everything involved with that. And there's also a Opportunity Arts affiliate discount and a student discount. So students from LCC MSU, if they wanted to come, they'd get $5 off of their ticket, and you'd be able to see there. But however, I will say that for the VIP, there is a limited amount of seats.
Mm.
So there's 24.
Okay.
So
Is it sold? Has any seats sold or anything yet?
we have a couple.
Okay.
So but as of right now, yeah, kind of. Well, yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting.
So how can one buy tickets to this?
So if you go on my Facebook page, there's a Facebook event, or in the Facebook event, there's an Eventbrite link where you can
Okay.
go in there, click on it, and purchase your ticket.
I must say that people need to follow your Facebook because the pictures you post are pretty insane. I'm like, every time you post something and I'm like, holy cow, that is sweet.
And I'm really excited because I'm working with a couple photographers for a couple different projects. There's in this, so one of them, Carrie Denny from Deathbox, she's doing, like, she's helping me with, we did a photo shoot, and it's going to be, like, the About Me stuff for, her photos. It's phenomenal. Mark Chamberlain has a couple in there. He's great photographer. And then Kevin and Joe are a couple of photographers I'm working with, and we're doing, I'm not going to give it fully away, but it's going to be a symbolic storyline in photos with, like, incorporating, like, the body paint and everything. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. So it's really cool because, like, I am, like, working with other artists and things in it too. So
That's cool.
it's exciting.
It is
Yes.
cool. Now, what is your goals as far as like the art community? What's your long-term goals? Obviously, you're doing this event to kind of create some social awareness. What is your long-term goals? You obviously don't really want to open a business, right?
Well, I have a business currently. I mean, I think that if you actually look in art history, generically, art has a business concept to it that you have to, like, keep in mind.
Because you have to promote and sell and
Yeah,
all that.
exactly. You know, and, like, make people aware of, like, what you're trying to do and what you're trying to, the message you're trying to get across. So there is always that, like MC Escher, right? So, and Dolly too. Like, they're the artists, but it's funny because, like, their wives were, because, like, as an artist, I think sometimes it's hard to have that business mindset, because you're so involved in, like, your craft, and you're more focused on, like, okay, like, you just want to get your thoughts on the paper. You're not necessarily always worried about, like, all the other things that come with that. So, like, for them, it's, they're lucky because, like, their wives would be like, all right, we're gonna put you on the show. We're gonna do this because we got to get this out there. Your stuff's, you know what I mean?
Right.
So having that, there is always that aspect to it because you have to have that when you're going to a gallery. Like, a lot of galleries, they have a specific aesthetic that they're trying to work with, or they have a specific theme that they're trying to show or whatnot. And you have to think of that stuff depending on what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go with it. So there is that aspect to it. But
how do you balance that?
That's a good question.
Because at some point, whether you enjoy it and you have a passion for it, it kind of becomes work regardless. So how do you keep that passion, that joy, and that freedom of being able to enjoy what you do, but also run it as a business? Because, for instance, this podcast, it's not a business yet, but it's going to be. It's essentially like a job, at least, especially in the beginning, you know, trying to get it up and running, trying to find guests. Luckily, Mike has been sending me people, so I have an unlimited, like, supply of people to come on now, which is really cool. It's cool to be able to have that opportunity to talk to people like you, or you know, Mila, or other people, Autumn, you know. So, but it's fun to do, but like there's still a business aspect to it because I gotta edit the podcast, gotta put it out there, gotta promote it. You know, that part I don't really enjoy at all. It's just part of the process. But I enjoy doing this. So how do you enjoy it? Like, how do you find that balance?
Well, one thing, and and with any business, when you're starting up any business, it takes a minute to, like, there's just so much you have to do, like your analytics for, like, where things are going, and, like, your finances and the licensing for certain things depending on what you're doing, and actually doing and producing things, and why are you doing, you know, all these things, you know. And for me, it's a matter of, okay, here's what I want to do, here's what I need to do, and kind of like taking those things and being like, okay, well, I need to make X amount of this to sustain myself and to keep this thing growing. Here's why I'm doing this thing. Here's what I want to do with it. I'm trying to, you know, for me personally, I think that as of right now, I'm to a point where there's two things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do events like this and help people and express things within myself that could help other people, but also making people aware that, hey, you can make art and creative careers something viable. Like, it's much more viable than what people think it is. So between those two things, as of right now, that's kind of where I'm going with that. So taking those ideas, right, and that's why I do the things like Embody Your Business, because again, taking fine art, that's perfect example of what I'm trying to do. And then you're like, okay, well, that's something that I want to do, and that's the whole aspect behind that, and then going through and being like, okay, well, I need to think my material costs, I need to think my time, my time is everything. And
Mhm.
like I've gotten to the point where people want to do certain things, and they want to collab and do and I have to be like, okay, like the things that means that, like, this event, like, I've had to shut out so many things even though I didn't want to, and I wanted to go out and do all these other things, but I had to be like, okay, but my time has to be focused on this because this is big for what I'm trying to do. It's big for for being able to be a little selfish,
Mhm.
at
Mhm.
times.
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, so how you're managing your time, which is something that I'm still working on, but I'm getting better. And knowing what you need. Okay, so I have X amount of financial things that I have to accommodate for. How am I going to make up for that? Things like that. So being able to like analyze those things and put them together and be like, okay, how can I meet the things that I need to meet while doing it in a way that I want to and or need to do?
Right.
Because you can't go into, I mean, I would be very fooling if I was going to sit here and say, well, there are not challenges that come up, or people will want to work on concepts that maybe I'm not fully acquainted with, but it's a challenge and I have to put myself in there and it comes out great. But that doesn't mean that it's not a challenge while I'm going in to do it,
That's one thing
you know?
Mila and I were talking about the other day in the podcast. She said, there's some days where she like, she gets for Inktober, she gets an idea and she's like, oh, I can do that. And
Mhm.
then she cranks one out. But then there's
Mhm.
the other days she's like, I don't know what to do. And it really
Yeah.
challenges her abilities, challenges her mind,
Yeah.
to be able to decide what she's going to do and how she's going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's important to do that.
Yeah. Because it strengthens your creative muscles. Because I have, like, it's definitely a muscle, you know,
Right.
like being able to take something and come. And when you have certain, like, for me, I guess a lot of it's like, different, like, if someone comes to me with like a body paint idea, and maybe it's kind of like they know what they want but they don't know what they want, and it's kind of like being so specific on what they want but really being like, but I'm not sure, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's
Right.
kind of like, it's like they know what they want but they don't.
Right.
So for me, that's a challenge because I, I if I could read people's minds, it'd be beautiful. I'd know what's in their head. But having to like really like know a person, their concepts, and having that's a big important thing. And sometimes that can be a challenge. And like that's the thing too, is like people have these ideas of what they want to express, and being able to help with that, like that's amazing. But we.
But I think something like what you're doing
Mhm.
and somebody not knowing what necessarily they want, and then
Mhm.
they might see like, okay, like this is what she's doing. I like that. I like that, because that's the thing, like with tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't know exactly what they want, but they'll go to a tattoo artist and then they let them have the creative ability to be able to draw up whatever they want, and they're like, I love that. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The same thing, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely, 100%. And most of the time that's how it goes. Like
I'm sorry, Mike.
95.
I think we got you beat.
But
He's like, I'm gonna come back. Don't worry.
yeah. But yeah, like and that's the thing too, and like I mean, every project is so different, and I mean, and that's the fun thing about it though, is like, I'll get people that'll come up to me with these ideas that like I never even thought of, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool, and you want me to be a part of it? That's awesome. Like, what? Like, but yeah, yeah. So
That's cool. Well, I'm excited to see how your art career takes off. I hope that I can make it. I'm not saying I will, but I hope that I can make it next weekend to your show. Um, and yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to promote?
oh yeah, so really quickly, one thing, going back to the embody your business thing too, that is another side project that I'm currently working on. So right now, one thing that I'm doing is, in May of this year, I did the embodiment project, where for the whole month of May, I did a body paint on either me or somebody else for every day for the month of May. And then from that, I took that, because again, that's more like personal, individual things, and then like taking that and then moving it into a business aspect where businesses can come and I can paint their logo on them, or a representative, or even myself if they were like, well, I don't really want to be painted, but I think this is a cool concept. So how about you just paint yourself and like promote or whatever, but so for businesses to be able to take that and like have like work with an artist and have this unique form of marketing, it's totally tax write-off because it's a marketing expense.
Right.
And it comes with, you can get a poster for it if you want, with like a little like mission statement for the business, or like a testimonial, or
cool.
or whatnot. Yeah. Signed as well, so that way you can like display it. It can be a live thing.
Like a banner type of thing?
More like a poster almost. So
Okay.
something to like actually hang up, like, I did this thing, and like with again the mission statement talking about the business, and working with local artists, and also too, I mean, there's other, if you want to do a video with it, like we can talk about setting that up. So there's a lot of different ways, like doing like a photo shoot. I mean, that there's different options for these different things. Yeah, we did.
Can I hold that up?
Yeah.
In front of the camera?
Yep. Paul Schmidt from Introduce.
Yeah, I actually
That is intense. I don't know if I can. There we go.
Yeah, so I painted Paul for Uno Deuce's anniversary, and see, he for that one, that's an example of a time lapse. So we recorded it, and he did a full on time lapse for that. So like, see, that's an option that you could take and work with that. And then I did Kelly's consignments, and we did that for Arts Night Out, and so it was more like an in-person thing. People were like coming up, watching it happen, and she
Now they would do this at like a vendor type event, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if if they have their own event that they're wanting to put on, or and Kathleen, I painted Kathleen at Blockade too, so like that was like a stage type of thing, like, so there's a lot of different ways, or like, again, like the video, or if they want to do like a commercial and like do like, a photo with something. Well, there's so many different concepts. It's just a matter of, sitting down, talking with them, what they want to do, how, like, what their ideas are, what they're trying to portray, and just kind of working with them to make it happen.
That's awesome. That's cool. I like that. I'm glad that you showed me, because I mean, obviously I can see you, but I'm glad that I was able to get an example of like what other businesses could do.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Is there anything else? Anything else you want to talk about, promote? Any messages of inspiration that you want to put out there?
Yeah, so as far as that goes, if you want to do something with art or anything in general, just do it.
Just do it.
I know.
The Nike logo.
Right, I know.
Or slogan.
Exactly. But I mean, honestly though, like, if it's something that you're like really keep thinking about, and you're like, I really want to do this thing, but don't let anything hold you back. That's basically the main thing, that as far as this goes, that I'm trying to get out. Because again, like, I was that kid who didn't talk, who didn't want to, I was, didn't feel like I was worthy of certain things. But it's not true. It's just lies I'm telling myself. And it's just something that, once you get up and do it, you'll realize that that's not the case.
And you'll redefine yourself.
Yeah.
And who you are, and your strengths and your weaknesses, and then you can work on those from there.
Well, and one thing too that I like to do, so for artists that I like, musicians or like actual artists, like I like to watch interviews and things and like learn about them, like I said, right? And I was watching an interview with Halsey when she was like midway through her career, and one of the things that she had said was when she was starting off, she's like, I had to go in there and act like, and be confident in myself and be like, hey, like, what I'm doing is like the next great thing, because if I don't say that, if I don't believe that in myself, like, why should anybody else believe that?
Right.
If I don't come in and be like, like, this is worth your time. Take a look at this.
Yeah.
This is something that I put together, and I promise you won't regret it. if I don't have that confidence, why would I expect somebody else to feel that way?
Right, exactly.
So, like, like, even if you're, worried about, like, yourself, whatever you're doing, at least give that the respect. And then from when you start doing that, then you'll be like, you know what, I'm doing this thing.
Yep.
I'm the one making this happen. I am. And we all are.
Yep.
And it's not, and that's the thing, like, if we have that within ourselves, like, it takes you far. And people see that, and it's inspiring. And then it helps them. And then they move. And then we all move together, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like a chain.
Real quick on that note, when I started this podcast, it was like the same thing. It's like, because it's a vulnerable thing to do. It's a vulnerable thing to, like, just sit here and have a conversation. Even, like, if I'm not talking about myself, but I'm talking to you, like, I have to form words and discussion. I have to form this discussion, and it's not an easy thing to do, and it can be embarrassing if you don't say the right thing. You might say the wrong thing, so there's, like, this sense of expectations of what you might think other people have of you. And so when I first started this, I remember, like, promoting it, and I'm like, I didn't want anybody to listen to it. I'm like, people at work, they're like, hey, I like your podcast. I'm like, don't say that. Please don't. But you got to have, like, this sense of confidence in yourself, like, knowing that, okay, these people, they're supportive of you. They want you to succeed, regardless of you not doing well, or regardless of how well you do. They want you to succeed no matter what.
100%. And it's like, if you're just, like, you're it's helping them.
Right.
They're getting something out of it.
And that's something I had to realize, like, with this podcast, is it's not about me. This podcast, like, this episode right here is not about me or what I say. It's about you. It's this platform. I mean, unless I'm doing an episode talking about myself, it's not about me. It's about helping other people in our community, or in our local community, like Michigan or anywhere, to come on and share their stories and help other people. So, like all the other artists I've had on, it's a platform for anybody. And so by me having this platform, it helps you, and it helps Mike, it helps Opportunity Arts, it helps everybody. Everybody. Not just
phenomenal.
me. Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
And that kind of brings it back to what you just said with what you're doing. It's like a web. Like you're doing it for you, but it's ultimately helping a bunch of other people too. Yep.
That's powerful.
It is. Well, thank you for doing this. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it, and I hope to have you back, and I look forward to possibly going to your show. I don't want to commit.
It's okay.
I don't know what I have going on yet, and that's that communication I got to discuss with the wife. So
if you're there, I will be so happy. If not, that's okay too.
I would love to pop in. So again, thank you. It was an honor talking to you, and I love your face paint.
Okay, thank you so much.